Welcome to the Big Game Hunting Podcast, where we help hunters like you prepare for the big game hunting adventures you've always dreamed of. Now, here's your host, John McAdams.
Hello, John McAdams here. Welcome to episode 214 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. It's been a while since we have done an ammunition company profile. And so with that in mind, Seth Swerzek is joining us on the show today to talk about Hornady ammunition. Now, Seth joined us back in bonus episode 15 to talk about new developments from Hornady for 2022 and their new CX bullet in particular. That was a really good episode, and I recommend that you check it out if you didn't already listen to it. But that episode had a very narrow focus, while today we're going to talk about the entire line of Hornady hunting ammunition, from their Varmint Express line all the way up to their Dangerous Game line and everything in between. We'll talk about the intended use for each lineup, cartridges contained in each one, bullets used in them, etc. Now, this is going to be a great episode, but before we get started, I'd really appreciate it if you would support me on Patreon. I work my tail off to produce good quality content, but that takes a lot of time, energy, and money. And this is another way listeners can help me continue to do that going forward for just $5 a month. Those who subscribe to my Patreon channel will receive additional content I specifically produce for Patreon subscribers, like the recordings from Kevin Robertson Talks at Conroe Taxidermy, and I've also released several videos recently specifically for Patreon subscribers on cartridge and bullet selection and shot placement that's conducive to meat preservation, some of the differences between lead-free and lead-core bullets when it comes to terminal performance, accuracy, BC, etc., and the right way to compare cartridges. More videos are on the way as well on things like the pros and cons of box magazines versus hinged floor plates in a hunting rifle, and some of the dirty secrets about hog hunting you should know about before booking a guided hog hunt. And you can subscribe to my Patreon channel at patreon.com/biggamehunter. That's patreon.com/biggamehunter. Or click the link in the show notes. Okay, let's get started talking about Hornady ammunition with Seth. Okay, Seth, it is great having you back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Can you start off with a brief overview of Hornady ammunition and then what you guys really specialize in? What's the niche that you guys really look to fill in the hunting and shooting industries?
Sure. Well, Hornady ammo goes back a long ways. In the, kind of post-Vietnam era, there was a lot of mill surplus brass. So we got into the ammunition business around then. That actually started kind of before Vietnam was really, really hot. Started in 1964. And we just kind of loaded your basic military type cartridges, the 308 Winchester, the 30-06. And then we kind of expanded that into anything that you could neck up or down. So now we're doing 243 and 270 and stuff like that. And that was early on, and that was called Frontier. Well, that kind of morphed into what you see now, which is very prominent Hornady ammunition. Hornady always has been and always will be a bullet manufacturing company. That's really why Hornady was started, and the ammo was just subsequent to that. But now, where we're at today, we use our ammunition as the delivery for our bullets, and we are still passionate about developing bullets. And we do a lot of R&D, and then we have a line of ammo that really complements what our bullets are for. And I can't say we really have a niche for our ammo, but we really fill several niches. We have what, in my opinion, is the ultimate varmint ammunition out there, featuring our VMAX bullet. We're probably most known for, at current time, for our precision hunter ammo. The ELDX bullet, good for non-traditional distances and still works well close up. We've got dangerous game, we've got medium game, big game, we've got bonded bullets, we've got solid, monolithic bullets, lead core bullets. We've really got something out there for everybody, and it's been an awesome bunch of decades, of making ammunition and really focusing on the bullet. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, Hornady ammunition.
That is very interesting. I did not realize the story with Frontier. I see that you guys still offer a Frontier line of ammo, so I guess that's kind of a legacy offering that you guys have. That's a throwback to your, from when you guys first got started. Then,
yeah, basically it was. We had an opportunity with some military surplus and some gas gun focus type cartridges, 223, 556, 300 blackout, 6.5 Grendel, that kind of stuff. So we really, since those are voluminous, cartridges that sometimes people aren't looking for hunting performance or match grade accuracy. They're just looking for general target shooting type stuff, and then the volumes are higher. And yeah, we were looking for a place to put those SKUs, and it just made sense to relaunch that Frontier line of ammo with that pseudo kind of military-esque type reference, because back then it was just whatever was military surplus for cartridge cases. And the Frontier was really kind of a neat relaunch here just a few years ago for those type of cartridges.
Okay, very interesting. Well, let's start diving into the individual ammunition lines that you guys offer, and we'll hit the highlights of the cartridges that are offered in each one, the bullets that you use in it, and the intended applications for that stuff. And we'll start with small and go to big. So why don't you start with your Varmint Express line?
Yeah, so the Varmint Express, that's something that basically came as a necessity. We have in my opinion, we have some of the best varmint bullets on the market that are our VMAX bullets. And the VMAX, since its release, has been known for just absolutely awesome terminal performance. When you're really trying, you're not worried about hides per se. You're just worried about quickly dispatching a varmint like a prairie dog or a coyote or something like that. Boy, do these things, they work well. And then not to mention the accuracy. These things are known for being incredibly accurate. So not only do you have a rapid fragmentation, but you also have incredible accuracy. So you pair that up with the popular varmint cartridges like that you'll find in the Varmint Express, the 22 Hornet, the 223 Remington, the 22 250, that kind of stuff. You really have the ultimate in varmint ammo, but it's available right on the shelf. You don't have to hand load anything.
So since we're talking about a bullet designed for use on varmints, we're talking about very rapid, almost explosive fragmentation upon impact, right?
That's right. And that's a great way to put it, is explosive. If you've ever shot a prairie dog with a VMAX bullet, I'll tell you what, it is, gosh, I don't know the right word without sounding morbid, but it's fun to do. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. And then say on something like a coyote, something bigger like a coyote that's still a varmint or a predator, but still not very big. Someone shooting it with, say, a 223 or a 22 250 on a broadside shot, is that bullet likely going to exit?
Usually not. That's one of the beauties of a VMAX bullet, is because of that rapid fragmentation. I mean, there's no guarantees when you're shooting an animal, but we generally see that those bullets stay inside the animal because they're coming apart so fast. They just basically liquefy the insides of an animal, and because of that rapid fragmentation, they just stay right there in the thoracic cavity.
Okay, fair enough. Well, let's shift gears slightly then and talk about your Superformance Varmint.
Yeah, that's probably the bigger line of ammo between the two. Is the Varmint Express is traditional velocity, and that's perfectly fine. You get great accuracy, traditional velocity, and we do things like I said, the 22 250. That is just super popular. Well, the Superformance Varmint is a little bit bigger line. We have some more calibers, more cartridges, 204 Ruger, namely the Triple Deuce Remington, which is an iconic varmint cartridge, go up to 243 with that. So it features those same bullets, the same VMAX bullets. The difference is that we use a really progressive burning gunpowder that helps us get way more velocity. So it's the same bullets, and in a lot of instances the same cartridge, but they're just going, in some cases, 200 feet per second faster. And the old adage, speed kills, right? So they're going faster, so you're going to have flatter trajectory, you're going to have less wind drift. And man, if you thought a VMAX bullet worked good at moderate speed, you should see what it does at high speed.
talk to us a little bit about the NTX bullet that is offered in some cartridges in that line.
Yeah, so the NTX bullet is unique in that it's lead-free, but it still rapidly expands. It seems like a dichotomy there because monolithic bullets are generally known for really deep penetration. So what we did is we basically found a way to make a lead-free bullet that would still expand really quickly. And how we did that was with a kind of a copper alloy core. So it's basically a powdered copper and it's an alloy, so a powdered core that is compressed into a pellet size. And so that is swedged into the bullet in place of the lead. So now when that polymer tip dries rearward into the bullet, now you've got a core that is still absolutely going to come apart, give you that near instant expansion, that explosive fragmentation, and still deliver all the accuracy that you want. So that's the NTX, really unique bullet there for people in lead restricted areas or that just don't want to shoot lead in general, but still want that devastating effect on prairie dogs and coyotes.
Okay, fair enough. I was about to ask if that was a lead-free bullet then. I see.
Yep.
And so, you talk about the difference between the Varmint Express and the Superformance Varmint lines. It really seems to be, in practical terms, you're shooting the same weight bullet for the same cartridge 300 feet per second faster with the Superformance.
Yep. Yeah, it goes back to that, like I mentioned, the speed kills mentality. You just get flatter trajectory, less wind drift. And when you're out there, laying down on a prairie dog town, or you got a coyote that's loping across on the prairie or something, you don't always have time to get the perfect range, get perfectly set up for a shot. So just having that flatter trajectory allows for a little more forgiveness in the field.
Yeah, and for the listener here, I'm looking at the 204 Ruger with that, let me see what is that, 24 grain NTX bullet. You got a muzzle velocity of 4,400 feet per second. With a 200-yard zero, you're only 4 inches low at 300 yards and 14 inches low at 400 yards. That's about as close to laser flat trajectory as you're going to get. Man, that's screaming.
Yeah, it's like shooting a frozen rope. It's pretty remarkable that you can get that kind of performance. And yeah, to be 100% honest with you, I shoot quite a few prairie dogs every year, and the 204 Ruger is one of my go-to cartridges. If the wind's not blowing too bad, if the wind's under 15 miles an hour, I'll tell you what, that 204 Ruger is absolutely unrivaled when you're doing those kind of speeds.
Now, I listened to a recent podcast with you talking with Jaden Quinlan about internal ballistics and whatnot, and talking about pressure and everything. And, one of the things he was saying over and over again is that, velocity is the direct result of pressure. And if you have a velocity that's above your SAMI specs for a given cartridge, you're probably over pressure. But in this case, because you're using a special proprietary powder, you're able to get this velocity without having it be an unsafe pressure for these cartridges then?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, basically, and Jaden did a really good job on that podcast. And just a quick jump down that rabbit hole real quick. If the listeners out there are wondering or want some more information, that was the Hornady podcast on the episode about internal ballistics. But Jaden did a great job of explaining powder progressivity. And that's basically the powder's ability to change burn speed at a fast rate that matches the increase in bore volume that happens when a bullet's going down the muzzle. So without getting too incredibly in depth, it's basically just the powder continues to burn faster as the bullet travels down the barrel. And so you end up with this really perfectly matched scenario where you have an increase in velocity, but no increase in pressure. And that's basically the bullet is being pushed on the bullet. The powder is pushing on the bullet at max pressure for a slightly longer duration of time. That's kind of an easier way to think about it. So the max pressure never goes up, but the time that the max pressure is sustained is what increases.
Yeah, so this is definitely a don't try this at home sort of thing. Buy factory ammo that gives you that performance, and be very careful trying to roll your own doing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's, the chemists at the powder manufacturing facilities have this down to a science, and yeah, it's definitely something not to be played with.
Well, you do have another Superformance line that we'll come back to in a minute, but since we're still in kind of the smaller end of stuff, let's switch gears and talk about your black line, unless there's anything else you want to talk about with the Varmint Express or Superformance Varmint.
No, not at all. Black line is a good next progression for sure.
All right, well, go ahead and tell us about that, and what is special about this stuff?
So the black line is really geared towards it, and not that it's only useful for, but it's really geared towards the semi-automatic rifle. You know, the black rifle, the quote-unquote black rifle, is really America's cartridge, or America's rifle, as we say. You know, it's so prolific, and there's a ton of different options. I mean, you got suppressed, unsuppressed, pump action. You've got mid-length gas systems, carbine length gas system, rifle gas system, piston systems. I mean, it's just, there's so many different variables in gas guns. And again, you can use it in a bolt gun or anything else. You know, it's certainly usable. And it's really designed to work well in those systems. So what I mean by that is a good example is something like a 16-inch AR. Chambered in 223. So on a lot of lines of ammo, we will worry about chamber pressure. Obviously, that's very important. Well, what we also check with the black line is port pressure. So we try to keep a close eye on what the pressure is doing down the barrel so that it will successfully run those guns. And long story short, what that really equates to is we're just matching the propellant choice really well for that line of ammo. So the bullets, most of them are either VMAX or boat tail hollow point bullets. On some cartridges, you might see an interlock or an FMJ or even an SST in some of those. But for the most part, they're boat tail hollow point or VMAX bullets. And they're good for plinking, target shooting, and depending on the bullet and cartridge, they can be good for hunting as well.
And now, how was it that you made some of these interesting bullet selections? So I'll kind of just, for the listener that's not looking at this, I'll just run through some of them real quick. Like, we got a couple different 223 and 5.56 lines or loads with either full metal jacket, a boat tail hollow point match, or an interlock bullet. Other cartridges, you got a VMAX bullet. Still others, you have maybe the FTX or the AMAX or the SST. You know, what was going on with that?
Sure, depends. A lot of it depends on what else we had for that cartridge. Let's say 223, for example. What other bullet options do we have available in that cartridge elsewhere in the product lineup outside of black? And then after you get that data set, you look at, okay, what are people mainly shooting in AR style rifles? So that's why you end up with something like an FMJ or in a 75 grain boat tail hollow point, because that's what a lot of people are shooting in semi-automatic rifles chambered in 223. In other instances, it was, okay, we have a cartridge and bullet, but it doesn't really fit somewhere else. Like a good example of that would be 6.8 SPC. Okay, so we make 6.8 SPC. It's not really a varmint cartridge. There's not a lot of people out there that use it a ton for varmints, unless you include Texas pigs as varmints. I know some people do, but they're generally, that's at least a medium game animal. They, as you know, they're surprisingly tough. So then we look at, okay, we have a cartridge that is almost exclusively available as a gas gun, 6.8 SPC, but we want to put our 110 grain VMAX in there. So it fits in the black line to put it there. So that's why we make some of those choices. But largely we take a look at what's available of the same cartridge in the rest of the lineup, and then what bullets make sense for the gas gun shooter.
Okay, fair enough. And so since we are talking about the black line, that has a lot of stuff in it, mainly, say, the 5.56, 223, and then there's substitutes. There's, like you said, there's others like 7.62 by 39, 308, whatnot are in there. In general, what of all of the cartridges that are designed to function in an AR-15, besides the 223 and 5.56, which one have you found that maybe across the board is the most popular? Would it be the 6.5 Grendel or it's the 300 Blackout?
I'd have to run some reports and see, because there's a ton. I mean, you look at 223 is always popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that to consider. Then you have something like the 6 ARC. The 6
Mm-hmm.
ARC is quickly becoming one of our more popular cartridges of that size. When you compare the 6 ARC to a 6.5 Grendel, 6.8 SPC, 224 Valkyrie, that kind of thing, the 6 ARC is just blowing up. But then you have staples again, like the 308 Winchester and the 300 Blackout. So I'm not sure which one's the most popular, but there's some considerable names, when you look at 223, 300 Blackout, 308 Winchester. Even the 450 Bushmaster is a really, really popular SKU in the black line.
Now, the 450 Bushmaster and the 7.62 by 39 loads that you guys offer in the black line, if I were going to be hunting deer with either of those cartridges, it would seem like that the black offerings for both of those would be some of the best options that are available out there for them. It's really, especially that 7.62. There seems to be tons and tons of FMJ stuff for it, but not a lot of, hey, I want to go deer hunting. What's a good bullet to use other than this one?
Right. Yeah, I would have to 100% agree. In that 7.62-39, you have our 123 grain SST, so you get rapid initial expansion, but you get controlled expansion, so that's awesome. And then in the 450 Bushmaster, you get the 250 grain FTX, which is just a huge bullet. So you really can't go wrong with either of them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did always think it was interesting, though, that say like the 6.5 Grendel you have in here with the 123 grain ELD match. Great match bullet, but I wouldn't hunt with it. But it seems like that offering that you have in your custom line, which we'll talk about here in a second, with that 123 grain SST, that seems to be like the hunting bullet for the Grendel.
It really is. That's one of those, that SST is just an awesome bullet, especially for cartridges that don't operate with a ton of velocity. And again, that's where we look at, okay, where do we have a hole? Okay, is there a lot of people shooting matches with the 6.5 Grendel? Not really. So does it fit in the match line, or is it better suited in the black line featuring that match bullet? And those are kind of goes back to your question about bullet selection.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about with black?
No, I just think it's important to note that, yes, we kind of gear it towards the semi-automatic shooter, but by no means is that saying that you can't shoot it in something else. If you've got a bolt gun, the prime example is our 105 Whitetail Hollow Point Black in 6 Creedmoor. I mean, I've shot the snot out of that stuff out of my bolt action rifles, and performs great. So it's designed for those semi-automatic rifles, but it's certainly not exclusive to semi-automatic rifles.
All right. Well, kind of in that same vein, let's talk about your Subsonic line now.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That's something that I didn't quite realize would be as popular as it has become. But man, I'll tell you what, in pretty short order, it has gotten really popular.
Well, so how did you guys develop that, and tell us about that bullet? Because it seems like, especially the 300 Blackout has this reputation, right? It's a really good cartridge for use subsonic, and then guys will, oh man, I want to go shoot a deer, I want to go shoot a hog with my suppressed 300 Blackout using subsonic ammo, and it's really hard to hit the animal, for one thing, because you got a very arcing trajectory, and then if you're using a standard, say, 220 grain FMJ bullet, that bullet will just pencil through the animal, and yeah, you shot it, but you may never find it, or it takes a long time to die. So what was it like designing that Sub X bullet to get good expansion at these real low velocities? Yeah,
well, it really stemmed from 300 Blackout. That's really where everything started, was Blackout. We were trying to find a suitable law enforcement bullet that would pass the FBI protocol for penetration. And that's really difficult to do. So that's where it stemmed from. And we kept playing with bullet weight and meat plat diameter until we found a combination of things that would expand reliably, pass that FBI protocol for penetration for the law enforcement use, and still shoot and feed and cycle and do all that stuff that it also needs to do. That's where it started. That's why we started down this rabbit hole. So that was the 300 Blackout. And then from there, it was like, okay, the Blackout's doing really, really well for the military law enforcement application. But now, we're using it for shooting pigs in Texas, or shooting whitetail deer, and shooting antelope, even black bear, and it's performing really, really well. So then the decision was made, like, okay, how can we maximize the performance here for everybody else? And then we looked at the lever action cartridges, 3030 and the 4570. Those are two of the most prolific, I would say, lever action cartridges out there. And it was like, so if everybody's got one, why not give them, different ammo options to shoot? And we use that same design methodology as we did with the 300 Blackout for those lever action cartridges. They're safe to use in a tubular magazine. They shoot accurately, and they hit plenty hard when you're hunting medium-sized game. And then the next progression in that was straight wall cartridges. When you look at states like Iowa and Indiana and places east of us, it's the big straight walls that are getting really popular, the 350 Legend, the 450 Bushmaster, and those are heavy recoiling cartridges, as is the 4570. So when you drop things down to work below the speed of sound, they become so much more enjoyable to shoot. So if you're a recoil sensitive shooter, if you're getting youth involved, or just anybody who wants less recoil, they really fit the bill there. And then you compound that by making them actually work on terminal performance. These bullets have that really big knee plat, so they're hitting with a large frontal diameter, and they have a skived jacket. So it's a strategically weakened jacket up front that works really well at reduced velocity. And these things will expand at velocities down to like 850 feet per second, which when you're launched out of the muzzle at 1,050 and you're below the speed of sound, you aren't fighting the air as much to put it in simple terms. You're not fighting the air and it's not increasing the drag. So you end up with performance out to 100 to 200 yards or further if you could shoot it accurately. And that's pretty amazing to get 100 and 200 yard performance from a subsonic cartridge. So yeah, if you're looking for deer, antelope, black bear, pigs, stuff like that, amazing shooting experience, and then plenty of terminal performance to go with it.
So the 300 Blackout, all right, piece of cake. A lot of people have, say, an AR and 300 Blackout, and especially these days, a lot of people have suppressors that could run on them. So I'll bet that thing is whisper quiet, suppressed. Oh,
you hear the firing pin hit the primer. It's remarkable.
Now the others, though, since they are, let's say, the 30-30 and the 45-70, I'm sure there are some people that have suppressed rifles in those cartridges. But I'm sure that, say, you just put this in a regular Winchester 1894 or something like that for your 30-30, running it not suppressed, it'll be quieter, but it'll still be pretty loud. Were you just going for, in a case like that, just reducing the recoil and making it effective at short range? In that respect, what were you going for?
Yeah, basically just to reduce the recoil and make it a much more pleasurable shooting experience was the big one. And there are a bunch more lever action companies now where you can buy a lever action rifle that has a threaded muzzle, and then just suppressors in general are getting more and more popular. Mm-hmm. But regardless of suppressed use or not, these things are just a funner shooting experience. If you've ever laid down and shot, a box of ammo of Full House 4570, it's borderline brutal, or it can be. So even though you're going to get a little bit louder than normal because it's unsuppressed, it's still much quieter than a Full House load and significantly less recoil.
All right, fair enough. Now, let's talk about the custom line. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but let's dive into this one a little bit in a little more detail.
Yeah. So the Hornady custom line was, Joe Thielen in the Hornady podcast put it really well. The Hornady custom line was really paying homage to cartridges that need a custom load. Where you're trying to get hand-loaded performance from factory-loaded ammo. That's really custom line in a nutshell. And custom can be used, is used by us as sometimes a catch-all. Sometimes if we don't have a good home for it in another line of ammo, we can put it in custom. But it really does catch a lot of those cartridges that need a custom load. When you talk about things like the 218B, the 250 Savage, a 264 Win Mag, 3040 Krag, 303 Brit, stuff like that. it's got some other cartridges like the 243 and other things, but it really is that idea of getting custom loaded performance from factory loaded ammunition.
Now, I see you have a custom international line. It seems like in that case you would have cartridges like the 8x57 millimeter Mauser that are real popular, like in Europe and whatnot. But for, say, cartridges that there's an overlap, that say like a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 308 that you might find in both, what would the difference in practical terms be, if any?
It depends on the cartridge. In some instances, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that you wouldn't get to see, and generally that has to do with the fact that we test our ammo here in America to SAMI standards, and everybody across the pond tests their ammo to CIP standards. And the proof house, which tests all of the ammo, the proof house and the CIP standards differ sometimes, sometimes pretty considerably, to like the pressure and velocity requirements to CIP. So sometimes you might see some crossover, but you're like, okay, well, the 30-06 ammo in Custom International is slower in velocity. It's because it operates at lower pressure per the CIP standard. So some of the stuff is behind the scenes. The other thing is, not just with Custom International, but anything international, sometimes we'll make bullet designs that lend themselves to accuracy in the traditionally designed chambers that are prominent in Europe. If that makes sense. We might make special ogive profiles or different bullet shapes that just make them a little bit easier to shoot out of those older and more traditional design chambers.
Okay, fair enough. And like I mentioned earlier, I see we have that 6.5 Grindle load here in the custom load that's, like I said, seems to be kind of the gold standard for people that want to hunt with it. Same thing with that 120 grain SST you got in the 6.8 Remington, and then just kind of a whole mess of other stuff and all kinds of interesting cartridges. Some a little bit more obscure, like you said, the 303 British or the 358 Winchester.
Yeah, people, and that's one thing that I have always admired. I've been employed here at Hornady for almost a decade now, and one thing that I remember growing up as a user of Hornady products, and one thing that it's really impressive to me that they still do it today, is the Hornadys, Jason and Steve, they really do have a commitment to, if they're the only manufacturer or only, one of only one or two manufacturers that make a certain cartridge or a certain brass or a certain bullet weight or whatever for something kind of obscure, they still want to service that market. And I've admired that, not everybody shoots a 358 Winchester anymore, but the fact that they will still make brass for it and they'll still make ammo for it, it might not be as often as we'll load other stuff, that certainly makes sense, but we do want to continue to take care of that market.
Well, I'll, for those people that may be listening to this, I'll just run through the cartridges here real quick. 22 Hornet, 218B, 223 Remington, 243, 250 Savage, 6.5 Grindle, 264 Win Mag, 6.8 Remington, 275 Rigby, 300 Blackout, 308, 3040 Crag, 300 H&H, 303 British, 350 Legend, 358 Winchester, 405 Winchester. Can't be too many other places making the 405 Winchester these days.
No, I think we might be the only one.
And the 450 Bushmaster. It is interesting how in cases like this, sometimes even Winchester isn't making ammo for some of their old cartridges now.
Yep, I've just had that instance here not that long ago. I had a couple writers reach out that after several months of waiting, they finally received a Winchester 405 rifle to review, but Winchester no longer made ammo. And luckily, I happened to have a few boxes laying around, so I was able to get some Hornady custom 405 Winchester loaded with our 300 grain interlock bullet sent out for review, and they were able to get their work done, get those articles published, and it's always great seeing Hornady ammo out there in the gun magazines.
All right, fair enough. And so to quell any of the conspiracy theories that may be going around out there, even with the continued high demand for ammo, you are continuing to produce in, say small-ish quantities or maybe as big as you ever did, the more obscure cartridges, right? Like the 405 Winchester and the 358 Winchester.
Absolutely. We are absolutely still servicing that market We won't forget them. And again, like you mentioned, well, and it's kind of a oxymoron here. We are making them not as often as we make the other more high demand stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at our production capacity, which has gone up considerably in the last few years, we're probably making as more than we ever have of those more obscure cartridges. It's as a ratio of our production, still about the same when you think about how much we're making of 30-06 and 270 and 6.5 Creedmoor and those cartridges.
Yeah, I have heard from other ammunition manufacturers that everything that they've always made, they're continuing to make as much or more of it, and then the really high demand stuff, they're just really, really, really cranking it out.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yep, that's how it goes.
Now, in the other line of your custom line, tell us about your custom Lite line.
Yeah, custom Lite's a really neat ammo line that it's similar if you think of it to like our Subsonic. In that it's very specifically designed for light recoil. The Subsonic obviously is operating below the speed of sound. Well, custom Lite is reduced recoil with no sacrifice in terminal performance with traditional bullets. So there's no special made bullets that are designed to operate below the speed of sound here. But what we did is really common throughout the country, probably the world. Okay, I have this rifle, and this is what I have, and this is what we're going to hunt with. And whether you're, a 14-year-old kid that weighs 110 pounds, or you're a grown man that weighs 200 pounds, this is the rifle we have to hunt with. Well, now you can use that same rifle and just cut some recoil out of it and still have all the terminal performance that you could ever want, if that makes sense. It's, like I said, it's one of those deals where there's some cool factor to hunting with my grandpa's rifle. Now, when you're 15 or 16 and you get behind a 8-pound 30-06 with a wooden stock and a metal butt plate, it's going to bark a little bit. So we cut out that recoil. We did that in two ways. The first thing we did is we take light for caliber bullets. So, in something like a 30-06, instead of shooting 150 or 165 grain bullet, we're going to shoot 125 grain bullets. We just cut some of the bullet weight out of there. That brings the recoil down pretty considerably. And then we're going to reduce the velocity by using a faster burning propellant. So when you do the recoil formula, the amount of propellant burned to achieve that velocity is one of the criteria that can predict recoil. So we use a faster burning propellant and we use lighter bullets, and you get that reduction in recoil. And we do that for some of those really popular calibers, the 243, the 708, the 30-06. And we just give everybody, just an option. Those will be SST bullets, perfect for, whitetail deer, antelope, pigs, any medium-sized game. If you were elk hunting, there's definitely some better options out there. But for, the largest group of hunters, which is deer hunters, this is really a great option to cut some of that recoil out.
Yeah, so I fell exactly into this group of hunters that you were talking about. I was 11 years old when I shot my first deer, and I was using a regular Winchester Model 70 in 308. And my dad was a hand loader, so he made a reduced power hand load for me. I think it was like 130 grain Sierra at 2,500 feet per second. It worked great on that
Perfect.
deer, and recoil was moderate, all that stuff. I see in your custom Lite line, you have the 308 Winchester shooting a 125 grain SST at 2675. And so that's a good step down from what is normal. I mean, a 308 will normally be shooting a 150 grain bullet at 2,700 feet per second. So it's a little slower and lighter than normal, and you're using less powder. And so, yeah, it's not at all hard for me to imagine that's a big jump down in recoil. And then, once you have that hunter, if they, if they want something that's a more powerful load when they're able to handle it better, then it's just a simple matter of putting regular ammo in the regular rifle, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just helps bridge that gap. You don't have to go out and buy a new rifle. You can just, opt for some lighter recoiling ammo and keep it easy.
Okay, very good. Well, let's talk about the other Superformance line that you have.
Yeah, that one's probably the more popular one. Not that Superformance Varmint is not popular, but our our original Hornady Superformance is, iconic in that it was really the first of its kind to feature those really progressive burning propellants. We got to give a shout out to Dave Emery, our senior ballistic scientist who retired from here in 2016. He gave more than 20 years of service to the company, and this is one of his brainchilds. And it really does everything we say it does, which is you get no increase in chamber pressure, no increase in recoil. You get all the terminal performance that you could ask for with the bullets that we feature, but you get the extra 100 to 200 feet per second over standard loads, and that's all that progressive burning propellant. And we've talked about that bullets are married to velocity for performance. If you want a bullet to perform terminally, which means expand to transfer energy, it has to have adequate velocity. A lot of folks get hung up on energy. Energy is just a product of velocity, right? So you have to have velocity to make a bullet work. Well, if you have more velocity, in a lot of cases, you can make the bullet, one, work better up close, but you can also make it carry further, so you have better performance at extended ranges as well. So you'll see bullets anywhere from our SST to our CX. Those are the two bullets primarily featured in the Superformance line. We do have a couple interlock bullets in a 444 Marlin, and I believe there's one more in the lineup. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I want to say it's another like 35 cal or something.
35 Whalen.
Okay, 35 Whalen. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you'll feature an SST or a CX bullet. And again, we do everything from 223, all the way up to, like I said, 444 Marlin, 338s, the 338 Win Mag, 300 Win Mag, all the normal stops on 37, 270, 6.5. We even do a 25-06 and a 257 Roberts. So a huge line. And for the bulk of your hunting in North America or any other country for that matter, there's probably something for you, excluding dangerous game. There's probably a good option there in the Superformance line.
Okay, fair enough. Now, you came on the podcast, bonus episode 15 for people that want to hear about this in detail. You talked about the new CX bulletin, so we won't dwell on that now, but it's a monolithic bullet, a very tough bullet. The SST is kind of the flip side of the coin, though, right? More traditional cup and core bullet that's softer and expands more.
Right, yep. It's a traditional cup and core bullet. What it does have is a tapered jacket, so that jacket is thicker on the bottom, it's thick on the sides, and then it gets progressively thinner as it goes towards the tip. And it has our interlock ring, which is a mechanical locking ring inside the jacket that is grabbing that lead core. So you have a polymer tip up front and a relatively thin jacket. So upon impact, that bullet really starts to transfer energy quickly. You're talking about less than an inch of penetration before it starts to expand. So it's really opening up quick. It's transferring energy. And then it's got the interlock ring and the jacket thickness that's tapered to help hold that bullet together as it's expanding. So the SST works awesome for antelope and whitetail, or mule deer for that matter. But deer and antelope, I'll tell you what, there are few bullets out there for traditional range hunting that are better than the SST. I mean, you can really disrupt a lot of tissue with that dramatic expansion, and it's really been a home run for us since we released it.
Now, and then you also have the interlock bullet in the 35 Whalen and 444. Yeah. That bullet seems to be very, very similar to the SST, but without a polymer tip.
Yep, virtually the same. You took a lot of that same design methodology from the interlock, which is a historied bullet. I mean, there's probably not been more animals killed by any of our products than the interlock bullet. That interlock was the bullet for many decades for us. It was an outstanding bullet, and it still is a great bullet. The polymer tip helps us to increase the efficiency of the bullet, get a little higher BC, get a little more consistent BC because they're perfectly shaped every time, and then they will expand at lower velocity. That polymer tip will drive down into that bullet cavity a little bit more reliably. So very similar bullets, very similar terminal performance. The SST you could think of as a refinement to the interlock design.
Okay, fair enough. And going back to what Seth was talking about earlier for the listener, when we talk about additional velocity, just for an example here, they do offer a 180 grain load from a 300 Win Mag at advertised velocity of 3130. 2960 is a very typical velocity normally for a 180 grain bullet in the 300 Win Mag. And then there's a load with the 270 with a 130 grain SST at 3,200 feet per second, and 3060 is normally typical there. So, in that, say, 150 to 300 feet per second range faster for a lot of these cartridges. Let's talk about the American Whitetail line then.
Yeah. The American Whitetail is really, as the name would imply, iconic. You know what I mean? It's one of those deals where we took the most popular Whitetail cartridges. You look at 243 Winchester is one of the biggest sellers for us in regard to hunting ammo. The 243, the 25-06, the 270. So we took those iconic Whitetail cartridges and then we paired them up with a classic, we just spoke about it here, a classic interlock bullet. We took the tried and true, and then the whole, I'm going to call it marketing campaign with the American Whitetail was to keep things simple, right? So, okay, American Whitetail, guy walks into a store, he hunts whitetail deer every year. He's got his, fill in the cartridge. We'll say 7mm 08, for example, another really popular one for us. I have my 7mm 08. I'm hunting whitetail deer. I live in, the South or the Midwest, and this is what we do. There's a box American Whitetail. There's no question this is going to work for me, and then you can get accuracy, consistency, and the terminal performance is going to be there. We just wanted to keep things easy for the traditional range hunter looking for dependable performance. This is honestly one of our more economical lines of ammo. So it's affordable, it shoots great, it hits animals hard. So for deer, antelope, pigs, anything of that nature, we just wanted to keep things simple. We didn't put a ton of bullet weights in there. So on things like the 30-06 and 308, we doubled up on some bullet weights just because of the huge popularity of those two cartridges. We'll do a light bullet and a heavier bullet, like a 150 and a 165. But for the most part, we didn't give a ton of bullet weight options, just a perfect pairing for a classic cartridge and, going to hunt whitetail deer or anything of that size. So in a nutshell, it's similar to what our custom line of ammo used to be many years ago, which was just, hand-loaded type performance in factory ammo.
Would you say that in terms of volume, your American Whitetail line is your most popular?
I can't say that, to be honest with you, because I haven't seen the numbers, so I'm totally speculating. So please don't take this to the bank. But in my speculation, the American Whitetail's got to be right up there. But I mentioned it. Our Precision Hunter line of ammo, I mentioned
that was going to be my next guess. Let's talk about that.
It's going to be right up there. I mean, American Whitetail's huge just because of the cartridges that we load in it. Everybody's got them. 243, 25-06, 708, 30-06, 308, 30-30, all the classics and more. But the Precision Hunter is got to be right up there with performance. I wish I had those numbers. I could probably do some legwork and get them to you just to see what line of ammo is most popular. But American Whitetail, Superformance, Precision Hunter, and now Outfitter are all right up there towards the top.
Now, with your Precision Hunter line, then, we'll switch gears and talk about that. You got the ELDX bullet in that. Yep. We won't talk too much about the ELDX bullet. We could probably do a whole podcast on how you develop that, and maybe we will one day. But seems like this is a bunch of cartridges that are suitable for longer range work where you get them a really, really accurate high BC bullet to try and facilitate that for the hunter, right?
Yeah, that was really the design concept. The first part of the Precision Hunter equation is the ELDX bullet. That's something we launched that bullet in 2015, and it was very evident once we finished the R&D on that bullet that we have to support this bullet with a line of ammunition specific to what this is for. And the ELDX bullet was designed to be first and foremost match accurate. It had to shoot match accurate. And secondly, and this is barely a second, this is more like a, number one subsection A, right? Like it has to have terminal performance, has to work, but it has to work at close range, and it's got to work at non-traditional distances. I'm talking distances further than 350 or 400 yards. Had to do both things well. And so initially, we looked at it from, okay, well, cartridges like the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 6.5 and 300 PRC, stuff like, cartridges like that where they are inherently accurate and easy to shoot. Well, we also put those bullets in the most popular cartridges. So now you've got 6mm ARC, 6 Creedmoor 243, some stops basically at every caliber, all the way up to and including 338 Lapua. But like you'd mentioned, it's about accuracy and terminal performance at all ranges first. And so to do that, we used conventional velocity. We're using powders that are just incredibly temperature stable, that produce amazing accuracy. And then again, we hold this to our match accuracy standard. So it's really a best of all worlds type ammo. And then I've been asked the question before, you can only pick one ammo line, what's it going to be for the rest of your life? And it's Precision Hunter. There's just no question. I've shot matches with it. I've taken it on hunts. I pling with it. I target shoot with it. For me, it's just the answer. And I'm really excited about that line of ammo. Granted, we launched it in 2015, so it's been around for a while, but I'll tell you, it's just my go-to for all of my personal needs.
I mean, that really seems like the flagship offering from Hornady these days.
I would have to agree, and I think it's not to cloud any other line of ammo. I think the reason that it gets the reputation as being the flagship is because it does so many things well. If you were only shooting whitetail deer in a bean field out to 250 yards, it doesn't really. Could you use it? Absolutely. But if you're also got a mule deer hunt at 10,000 feet in Colorado, and your shot distance might be 550 yards instead of 250 yards, it'll do that really well too. So it really spans a huge array of opportunity, and it, to me, that's why it's so incredibly popular, is because it's a one and done. If you want to shoot something far away, great. You want to shoot something close up, even better. And it just does all things well, and I think that's why it gets that reputation. We've got some other products like Superformance, like we talked about already, and coming up here, I'm sure we'll touch on Outfitter, that are also our kind of flagship products. But for me, that Precision Hunter, because of what it allows you to do, to me, that's my bread and butter.
Okay, well, good deal. Let's go ahead and talk about the Outfitter line then.
Yeah, the Outfitter line is just one of those, I like to call it the pseudo insurance policy. And I referenced this on a podcast the other day, the pseudo insurance policy thing. The deal with Outfitter, if you're going to hang the name Outfitter on there, it better be worth its salt here. And what we did when we drew up Outfitter ammo was, we started it with what was called the GMX bullet, which was our original monolithic bullet. And we wanted to feature that bullet in a line of ammo that was synonymous with take it anywhere across the world and do anything with it. If you think about the American Whitetail line of ammo, like I talked about earlier, where I said it was kind of the marketing deal was to angle it so that you saw the box, you saw the packaging, you saw the loads in the bullet, and you went, okay, yeah, easy button. That's for me because I'm hunting whitetail deer, and it's right there, no questions asked. Kind of similar with the Outfitter. We wanted it to be synonymous with the adventure hunter, the guy going up on the mountain, the guy going to a different country, the guy hunting in really inclement weather. Now, can you use it for other stuff? Absolutely. Well, now that line of ammo is becoming, like we talked about with Precision Hunter, one of our flagship products. It's got a nickel-plated case, so it'll separate itself from other ammo lines because it's got that nickel plating. That nickel plating helps with corrosion resistance. It helps with low light visibility. So if you're doing chamber checks, if you're sitting up at a glassing point, you can open it up, see that the round's in your chamber, close it up. As the sun comes up, you're ready for a shot. And then we waterproof those cases by sealing the primer and sealing the bullet when it's seated. So you have a cartridge that is nickel plated, so it won't corrode. You're not going to get tarnishing on it like you would with brass in moist conditions. And then it's sealed on both ends for water intrusion. So again, you can take that thing anywhere in the world, and if you happen to take a spill off a horse or something and dump your ammo into a stream, you can get that stuff dried off and trust that it's been sealed in the primer and case mouth. It's got the nickel-plated cases. And then now it's featuring that CX bullet, which we did that podcast on a few months ago, which is just the pinnacle of monolithic bullet performance. These monolithic bullets hit like an absolute hammer, and we were able to find some ways to make the BC and the drag more consistent bullet to bullet to bullet. And we've got some really awesome new bullets in there, mainly what we talked about, the 190 CX and the 6.5, the 130 grainer. That 190 is in the 30 cal. Really, really great drag characteristics. So you can get some extended range performance. You know, we're not talking about really long range stuff, but moderate range where you're shooting across a canyon or something. This line of ammo really is that insurance policy. You've saved for a bunch of years. You finally get the trip to Alaska or British Columbia or Africa. The last thing you want to do is get up there, like I gave the example, take a spill off a horse and submerge your rounds, and now you've got rounds that are not wanting to go off or something. This is really that pseudo-type insurance policy that no matter the conditions and no matter the shot angle, those monolithic bullets will penetrate through shoulder and hide and bone, and they just really get in there. So if you've got a quartering away shot and you got to fish one up through the last rib and get it through the vitals and into that offside shoulder, it's going to give you that performance. So the Outfitter line of ammo really is should give the hunter peace of mind that they'll be ready for any environment and any shot opportunity.
And you said this ammo is one of your more temperature stable loads, or you're not going to have a lot of variation going from high to low temperatures.
Yep. Our match ammo, our precision hunter ammo, and our Outfitter line of ammo, we take a really conscious thought with those lines of ammo. Not to say that we purposefully go out of our way to make other lines of ammo incredibly temperature sensitive. That's not the case. It's just the propellants we use that is high up there in our decision-making process when we're selecting propellants to use for a particular load. Outfitter and precision hunter and our match ammo, that comes into high consideration for us.
Okay, good deal. Talk to us next about your LEVERevolution ammo.
Yeah, that's one of those, like we talked about at the beginning, kind of one of the niches that Hornady fills. I think the lever action world is one of those niches. LEVERevolution really spawned from two things, and I'd mentioned him previous, but Dave Emery, our senior ballistic scientist, this was his brainchild. Dave Emery was a lever gun enthusiast. He had quite a few of them. He still got a bunch of them, and he really enjoys them. The restrictions with lever guns is most of them are tubular magazine fed, so you have to shoot really old design bullet shapes, usually with a round nose, so that you're not detonating that primer in front of it when you're in the tube. So the first thing he did was the FTX bullet. He found a way to make a spire-shaped bullet with a long ogive and a elastomer tip that was soft. So you get the shape of that long ogive and that pointy tip, but because it's soft, it will not detonate the primer in front of it. So that was revolutionary. Just changing the bullet from the old round nose stumpy shape to that sleek, sexy kind of pseudo long range type, you were able to pick up some performance downrange that you've never had. Now, instead of 50, 75, 100 yards, you could accurately shoot these things and get them to expand at 150, 200, 250 yards. Next in the process, though, was the LEVERevolution propellants that we use. So they have a modern propellant that's very similar to our Superformance line that helps increase muzzle velocity without increasing chamber pressure. So those traditionally chambered guns, the 45-70, the 30-30, you can get some more velocity without using more chamber pressure. So that was kind of the 1-2 punch there, was the modern bullet design and the modern propellant technology. So anything from your 357 mag, the 45 Colt, up to, like I mentioned, the 45-70, the 450 Marlin, the 444 Marlin, you just get incredible performance specific to that lever gun. And that's pretty darn cool. Should be mentioned that not just the FTX bullet, which is lead core, we also do the monoflex there. So if you're a non-traditional hunter looking for a lead core option, or you just want more penetration, the monoflex is available in the LEVERevolution line as well.
Well, let's take this opportunity then to talk about your lead-free option. Seems like you have that monoflex bullet in certain lines like LEVERevolution, and you have the NTX and the Superformance, and then you have the CX bullet in your Outfitter and some of your cartridges in the Superformance line, right?
That's right.
And that's all of them, right?
That's all of them, yep. And we try to give everybody an option. You know, a lot of people that are hunting in lead-free restricted areas, obviously, you know, you're going to have your lead restriction, you have to use something non-traditional. Well, it's quickly changing that regardless of where you're hunting, the performance that these lead-free bullets give in terms of penetration is really desirable. So people are finding themselves hunting more with lead-free bullets just for the enhanced penetration characteristics. So we're just trying to give everybody out there an option. You know, if you're a traditional prairie dog shooter and you just want to shoot less lead, great, we've got an NTX. If you're going on a big moose hunt and you want to shoot something that's not lead so you can get through a big heavy shoulder blade of a moose, great, we've got the CX. And likewise, if you're hunting in California and you're doing something lead-free with a 30-30 Winchester, well, now you've got a monoflex bullet to do that. So we're just trying to give everybody an option, and they really perform well. You don't have to sacrifice any terminal performance to go lead-free.
All right. Well, speaking of penetration, let's talk about your last offering here, your Dangerous Game series of ammo.
Yeah, that's a big one, and another. You could think of that as a niche as well. There's not everybody gets to go on a safari. Not everybody gets to hunt Cape buffalo or grizzly bears or something like that. So it is kind of a niche, but a niche that you have to rely on. I mean, if you're going to go hunt dangerous game, you have to hang your hat on your ammo. And I've heard it put this way, and I think it was maybe my boss, our marketing director, that said, when you go on a hunt, you internalize that you're going to kill an animal, but when you're staring at an animal that will hunt you back, it's not like you're just going to kill it. It's like you're going to war with it, because you could lose that battle. So it's important to carry something that you can absolutely trust and rely on. So our dangerous game line, we do focus on temperature stability. We also focus on regulation for double rifles. And then we use, the typical brass and bullets that we always do. And then we chamber them. Cartridge selection is your typical dangerous game type cartridges, 9.3 by 62, all the way up to 500 Nitro Express. And it's got two bullet options here. And the first is an expanding bullet. It's called the Dangerous Game, or DGX, X standing for expanding, Dangerous Game Expanding. And we bond those. So those are a unique bullet because they're copper-clad steel. So basically, it is a 98 thou thick copper-clad steel jacket. So there's copper, steel, copper. That way we can work it on the inside with our tooling, and it doesn't hurt the tooling, and it can ride in your bore and not destroy your barrel. So the steel is encased in copper, and we draw that out. Again, it's 98 thousandths thick, incredibly tough bullet. Now it is designed to expand. It's designed to expand to about 1.5 to 2 times its original diameter, but still be incredibly tough. So we do bond it, and the bonding is a proprietary heat treating process that essentially welds the jacket to the core. We use a really high antimony lead core, and it's just incredibly big, but because it's transferring energy, you get that devastating terminal performance. And then to follow that up, we have our solid, the Dangerous Game Solid, or the DGS, the exact same external shape as the DGX bonded. So for those wanting to run both bullets in one gun, you'll get, same point of impact. And this is a very similar design bullet. You get that super thick copper-clad steel jacket, the high antimony lead core. The difference would be that this one is reverse drawn so that there is no exposed lead up front. You have nothing but 98 thou thick material. And so if you're shooting hippos, rhinos, elephants, buffalo, stuff like that, you get a bullet that is absolutely tough, that will hit like an absolute hammer and really not distort or expand. So a lot of folks, what they'll do on the safaris and on the dangerous game stuff, they'll load that expanding bullet first. They'll hit with that expanding bullet, and then for follow-up shots, they'll come on with that solid. That way, when they're taking their most composed shot, they can put that DGX right where they want it. And if they're presented with an other than perfect shot angle, they can get that DGS in there.
You know, I know this ammo's been around for several years. It was the first ammo line I was aware of anyway. There may have been others, but it was the first one that I was aware of where you had that specific pairing of the soft and solid that shoots to pretty close to the same point of impact in a given cartridge. And, you know, I went on a buffalo hunt, gosh, it's probably 10 years ago, and I don't think the DGS series existed back then. And, you know, my dad and I had to do a lot of experimenting trying to build and find some loads that would give you that performance. So it's nice that you can just go buy factory ammo and do that now. It takes a lot of the pain out of it. Now, I know you offer the DGX bonded now. Initially, that was offered, the regular DGX bullet was not bonded. And
that's correct.
2017, 2018, something like that. I know you guys changed it, and I've heard of some, you know, guys that I know have had incidents where, especially say like a 375 Ruger or something like that, that DGX was expanding too rapidly on buffalo and getting into some kind of hairy situations. Do you know why you guys initially went with an unbonded bullet to start out with?
You know, that predated my time here, so I don't know when that bullet was designed, why they didn't go with the bonding process. I will say I know the engineer who's since retired that designed that bullet, and they went through extensive testing. It wasn't like they decided that and then just moved on and ran with it. They shot a lot of animals with that and just didn't see that negative type performance where things were expanding a little too rapidly. But apparently you get enough people that want a change, they listened and they made the change. So I don't know why that was originally the decision. All I can say is we had enough customer feedback that we looked into it, and, you know, we listened to our customers. If they want a tougher expanding bullet, we'll make them a tougher expanding bullet. And
I will say I have heard no issues with it whatsoever once you went over to the bonded bullet, and it's, you know, with all the hunts that I book for people going over there, especially for buffalo, that is, say, right up there with Barnes, say 1 and 1A for the bullets I recommend that people use on buffalo, for instance. And it's really just a matter of check these out, see which one shoots best in your rifle, and go with that one, and they'll both work great. And, you know, we've killed a lot of buffalo using those DGX bonded and the DGS solid, and my PHs, they use the DGSs as their backup rifles and all that stuff, and, you know, it's just perfect. So it's all around very good with those.
Yeah, it's really a remarkable bullet, and yeah, the fact that thing is nearly 1/8 of an inch thick jacket it's a huge bullet, incredibly robust, and yeah, if you're going on something like a dangerous game hunt, you want to be able to rely on it. And in regard to making the change to going to a bonded bullet, I hope that helps your listener understand that Hornady is a group of users. We're a small company. We're out here on the plains, and we are passionate users of our product. And there's not a lot of red tape because we're so small, because we're family owned. If we hear something, or if we come up with an idea, or if we have some customers demanding a change to something, there's not a whole lot of red tape and getting permission from a whole bunch of people to start looking into, is this credible? Is this valid? How can we make it better? What processes can we change, and how do we do it? You know, that process can happen really fast when you are, 1, a small company, 2, family owned, and 3, when your engineers and ballisticians and technicians are passionate users of the product. That's something I always try to stress to anybody that'll listen, that Hornady as a company, man, you want to talk about a group of people that get after it. From the high level, Steve and Jason Hornady, obviously passionate international hunters, down to anybody else here in the factory, we're out hunting, we're shooting matches, we're getting it done. And because we're so involved, because we're so free to move, we can make changes as necessary, and we can develop new products at a faster rate than most as well. So just something I wanted to throw out there.
Well, very good, and that is a good point, because no matter all the testing that you do on that stuff, sometimes things pop up, otherwise, and it's nice to be agile and make the necessary changes. And
yep.
And I think it's even better than it was now. We've talked about a lot of stuff, literally from shooting prairie dogs all the way up to Cape Buffalo and elephant on this podcast. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything as we wrap up?
No, other than, what I just said about us being mobile and flexible, that and the fact that if you're out there and there's something you want to hunt or shoot, Hornady will have something for you to use as far as bullet selection, ammo, cartridges. We're trying to have something out there for everybody. Now, is there something super unique and boutique that we don't have? I'm sure there is. But by and large, Hornady is passionate about what we're doing. I think we've got things figured out in regard to how to make bullets, and we make, in my opinion, the best and most consistent ammo on the market. That's another thing that is hard to do. It's easy to make 10,000 rounds that are really good, but when you need to make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds, they all have to be good. And I think that's something that we do really well, is consistency. And I appreciate everybody listening and interested in our product. And if you haven't already, please give it a hard look and consider using it, because we put a lot of effort into it and we trust it.
Okay, well, good deal. Well, Seth, it was great having you on the show. I'll put links to the Hornady website, your podcast, all of that stuff in the show notes. And thanks a lot for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.
Okay, I just wanted to recap a couple of things with you that we might have skipped over or glossed over in the interview. And specifically, I want to recap the full list of cartridges in each line. So first off, with the Varmint Express line, you got 22 Hornet, 223 Remington, 224 Valkyrie, 22 250 Remington, 220 Swift, 6mm Creedmoor, and 6.5 Creedmoor. With the Superformance Varmint line, we have 17 Hornet, 204 Ruger, 22 Hornet, 222 Remington, 223 Remington, 224 Valkyrie, 22 250, 220 Swift, 243, 6mm Creedmoor, and 6.5 Creedmoor. In the black line, we have 5.45 by 39, 223, 5.56, 224 Valkyrie, 6mm ARC, 6mm Creedmoor, 6.5 Grendel, 6.8 Remington SPC, 300 Blackout, 308, 7.62 by 39, and 450 Bushmaster. Subsonic, we have 300 Blackout, 30-30, 350 Legend, 450 Bushmaster, 4570 Government. In the regular custom line, we have 22-2 Hornet, 218B, 223, 243, 250 Savage, 6.5 Grendel, 264 Win Mag, 6.8 Remington, 275 Rigby, also known as the 7mm Mauser, 300 Blackout, 308 Winchester, 30-40 Krag, 300 H&H, 303 British, 350 Legend, 358 Winchester, 405 Winchester. In the custom international line, 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, 30-06, 300 Win Mag, 8x57 JS, 9.3 by 62. In the custom light line, we have 243 Winchester, 7mm 08, 308, 30-06. In the regular Superformance line, not the Superformance Varmint, we have 223, 5.56, 243, 6mm Remington, 6mm Creedmoor, 257 Roberts, 25-06, 6.5 by 55, 260 Remington, 6.5 Creedmoor, 270, 7mm 08, 7mm Rim Mag, 300 Savage, 308, 30 Thompson Center, 30-06, 300 Win Mag, 338 Ruger Compact Magnum, 338 Win Mag, 35 Whalen, and 444 Marlin. In the American Whitetail line, we have 243, 25-06, 6.5 Creedmoor, 270, 7mm 08, 7mm Rim Mag, 30-30, 308, 30-06, 300 Winchester Short Mag, 300 Win Mag, 350 Legend, 450 Bushmaster. In the Precision Hunter line, we have 243, 6mm ARC, 6mm Creedmoor, 25-06, 257 Weatherby, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6mm PRC, 270 WSM, 7mm 08, 280 Remington, 280 Ackley Improved, 7mm Rim Mag, 7mm Winchester Short Mag, 7mm Shooting Times Westerner, 28 Nosler, 308 30-06, 300 Remington Short Action Ultra Mag, 300 Ruger Compact Magnum, 300 Winchester Short Mag, 300 Winchester Magnum, 300 Weatherby, 300 PRC, 300 Remington Ultra Mag, 30 378 Weatherby, 338 Winchester, 338 Lapua. The LEVERevolution, we have 25-35, 730 Waters, 30-30, 307 Winchester, 308 Marlin, 32 Winchester Special, 338 Marlin, 348 Winchester, 35 Remington, 444 Marlin, 4570 Government, and 450 Marlin. In the Outfitter line, 243, 257 Weatherby, 65 Creedmoor, 65 PRC, 270 Winchester Short Mag, 7mm Remington Magnum, 7mm Winchester Short Mag, 308 30-06, 300 Winchester Short Mag, 300 Winchester Mag, 300 Weatherby Mag, 300 PRC, 300 Remington Ultra Magnum, 338 Win Mag, 375 Ruger, 375 H&H. And the last one, the Dangerous Game line, 9.3 by 74R, 9.3 by 62, 376 Steyr, 375 Ruger, 375 H&H, 450 400, 416 Ruger, 416 Remington, 416 Rigby, 404 Jeffrey, 450 Nitro, 458 Winchester Magnum, 458 Lot, 470 Nitro, and 500 Nitro Express. You can go to Hornady.com to learn more about the details of all of those lines, including the specific bullets available in each one and each different line, that sort of thing. And while you are there, be sure to check out the Hornady podcast. It's available on all the normal podcast apps, plus they have it on their website. It's a really cool show. I listen to it myself. Links to the regular Hornady website and their podcast in particular are in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon channel at patreon.com/biggamehunter. That URL is in the show notes as well. Remember, you can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and we can help. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.
This show may be over, but we have plenty more for you on our website. For more information on today's topic, as well as lots of other useful hunting resources, head over to the BigGameHuntingBlog.com. We look forward to having you back for the next episode. But until then, happy hunting.